Welcome to Alma Tales Lovers, where disrespect gets exposed and humiliation doesn't get the last word. These are the stories of wives and girlfriends who try to shame their husbands and boyfriends in public, weaponize family and friends, and treat love like a power game, until the calm comeback rewrites everything. If you've ever been embarrassed, talked down to, or made to feel less than by the person who should protect you, this channel is for you. Subscribe and turn on notifications for raw, realistic humiliation stories with quiet receipts, cold consequences, and hard lessons. Because respect isn't optional. Let's get into it. He's just my driver. Simone said it loud, proud, and smooth, like it was a punchline she wanted the whole back seat to enjoy. Mark's hands tightened on the steering wheel as her clients laughed. Not a nervous chuckle either. Real laughter, the kind that treats a person like furniture. Simone didn't glance at him once. She didn't soften it. She didn't correct it. She let him shrink in real time, in a car he was paying for, in a marriage he was still trying to save. Here's how it happened. Mark and Simone had been in Atlanta long enough to learn which streets turned into gridlock and which smiles meant business. Simone worked in client services at a boutique firm. Image-heavy, relationship-driven, always a little bit performance. Mark used to be the kind of man who filled rooms without trying. But over the last few years, he'd gotten quieter, not because life humbled him, but because Simone kept sanding him down. Not now, she'd say. Don't say that. Let me talk. It was slow, steady shrinking. When they first met, Mark was the one with the jokes and the calm confidence. He ran contracts for a logistics company, and people listened when he spoke because his words had weight. Simone was magnetic, laughing too loud, dressing too sharp, and making every room feel like it was missing something until she arrived. Their first date was in Midtown at a spot where the waiter treated them like regulars even though it was their first time. Mark made her laugh so hard she snorted, then tried to blame the sparkling water. He liked that she was bright. He didn't realize brightness can burn. Early on, Simone could be sweet in private. She'd curl up beside him and trace circles on his forearm while he talked about work. She called him my man with a pride that made him stand taller. They'd dance in the kitchen to old-school R&B, her socks sliding on the tile, Mark steadying her by the waist. Once she kissed his cheek and said, "You make me feel safe." Mark held on to that sentence like a promise. He didn't understand that some people use safety like a hotel. Comfort now, check out later. The first public jab came at a friend's birthday indicator. Someone asked what Mark did, and Simone cut in, smiling. He's a numbers guy. He likes paperwork. Mark laughed it off, but the tone was off, like she'd reduced a whole career to something boring. Later he said, "Why do you answer for me?" Simone shrugged. "I'm better at talking." That was the start of it. She spoke over him, corrected him, teased him in front of people. Every time, she acted like he was too sensitive for noticing. Mark tried to fix it the way he fixed everything, quietly. He planned date nights. He brought her lunch to the office. He left sticky notes on the mirror. "You got this." When she was stressed, he rubbed her shoulders until her breathing slowed. He listened to her complaints about coworkers, about clients, about how she carried the whole team. Sometimes she'd soften and say, "I don't know what I'd do without you." Then the next day, she'd act like his support was just part of the furniture. Useful, silent, replaceable. A year before the car incident, Mark lost his job in a restructuring. It wasn't his fault. The company cut an entire department. He came home with a box and that empty feeling men get when they're trying to stay strong and not scare the people they love. Simone looked at the box and said, "So, what's the plan?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "We'll figure it out." Just the plan. Mark promised he'd land on his feet. Simone nodded like a manager approving a schedule. He should have heard the coldness then. Mark did what he always did, adapt. He picked up rideshare, driving temporarily while applying for roles. He told himself it was just a bridge. Simone acted like it was a demotion she had to endure. "Don't pick me up in that shirt," she'd say, eyeing his plain polo. "My clients might see." She started asking him to drive her to events so I can answer emails, then stopped saying thank you. Mark would sit outside buildings for hours, watching people live their lives through tinted windows, while Simone walked out smiling like she was single. Still, There were funny moments because Mark was the kind of man who could find laughter in a broken day. One night at a gas station near East Point, a kid selling candy called him UNC and tried to upsell him like a tiny CEO. Mark played along, negotiating like it was a corporate merger. Simone laughed for real then, a rare sound that made Mark's chest loosen. "You are ridiculous," she said, smiling. Mark smiled back, hoping that meant something. It didn't last, but in that moment, it felt like the old Simone, the one who danced in the kitchen. A month later, Simone started bringing clients into their life more aggressively. Dinners, happy hours, networking breakfasts. Mark was expected to be present but invisible. The supportive spouse who pays the bill and laughs at the right time. When he spoke, Simone would lightly touch his arm like a warning label. Once at a rooftop spot in downtown Atlanta, Mark told a story and everybody laughed until Simone said, "Okay, babe," in that tone that meant stop. The laughter died. Mark swallowed the rest of the story like it was poison. Behind the scenes, Mark kept working. He didn't tell Simone everything anymore because she treated his dreams like distractions. Late at night, he started consulting on contract language for small businesses, friends of friends, local vendors, folks who needed clean agreements and didn't have legal teams. He built a tiny LLC in Georgia, not flashy, just legitimate. He learned to invoice, to track expenses, to protect his time. His first month was small money, but it felt like oxygen. He wasn't a driver. He was a professional who'd been forced into silence. Simone never asked what he was doing on his laptop. She assumed he was applying for jobs or wasting time. If he mentioned a consulting call, she'd say, "That's cute," like he was selling cupcakes. Mark started taking calls from the balcony just to avoid the way she'd look at him, half amused, half annoyed. And it hurt because he remembered when she used to look at him like he was the answer. Now she looked like he was an obstacle. Mark didn't tell her his client list grew. He didn't tell her his work was good enough that people were referring him. The week of the humiliation, Simone had a big client meeting at a private club near Buckhead. She told Mark to wear something simple and don't talk too much, like he was a child at an adult dinner. He nodded and drove because arguing had become exhausting. In the car, her clients were loud, talking about deals, vacations, what their assistants should be doing. Mark focused on traffic, on brake lights, on breathing. He didn't want trouble. He still believed peace could be earned by swallowing enough disrespect. Then came a question. How did you two meet? Mark felt a small warmth, like maybe Simone would tell the story of their first date, the midtown laughter, the kitchen dancing. Simone adjusted her blazer, looked at the skyline, and said, "Oh, he's just my driver." The back seat popped with laughter. Someone said, "Love that," like it was charming. Mark felt his stomach drop like an elevator cut loose. He didn't speak. He drove. He delivered them like cargo. Simone didn't correct a thing. At the club entrance, Simone stepped out first, posture tall, voice sweet. Mark followed to open the trunk. A valet asked, "Is this yours, sir?" Mark nodded. Simone didn't even look back. "He'll handle it," she told the valet, as if Mark was staff. Mark's face stayed calm. Inside, he could feel something cracking, not loud, not dramatic. Quiet, like a bone hairline fracturing after too much pressure. He stood near the entrance because Simone didn't want him hovering. That's where the VIP walked in. The VIP wasn't a celebrity. He was the kind of man who wore money like a plain hoodie. No logos, no loudness, just certainty. He greeted Simone, shook hands with her clients, and then his eyes landed on Mark. The man paused mid-step like a memory had grabbed him. "Hold up," he said, leaning closer. "Mark Daniels?" Mark blinked. "Yes." The VIP's face warmed with recognition. "You wrote the compliance language for that Cleveland logistics package. The one that kept our vendor from getting burned in an audit." Simone laughed too loudly, as if laughter could erase reality. "Oh, I used to do some paperwork," she said, smiling like she was being generous. "He's my driver." She said it again, slower, savoring it. The VIP didn't smile back. He looked from Simone to Mark and back like he was reading a contract with fine print he didn't like. "Are you still doing contracts?" he asked Mark. Mark's voice came out steady. "Yes." The VIP nodded once. "I've been looking for you, honestly." Simone's eyes sharpened. She tried to pull the conversation back into her control. "He's between things," she said, patting the air. "But I'm leading the client relationship here." The VIP's tone stayed polite, but the temperature dropped. "Client relationships matter," he said, "but so does character." Simone's smile tightened. "Excuse me?" The VIP didn't raise his voice. He didn't embarrass her with theatrics. He simply said, "I don't partner with people who belittle their own household. It tells me how they'll treat a deal." Simone attempted a charm offensive. "Oh, you're being dramatic," she said, waving a hand. "He's sensitive. You know how men are. No remorse, no reflection, just contempt dressed as humor." The VIP's eyes went flat. "We're done here," he said to Simone, then turned to Mark. "I have a meeting in Chicago next week. Send me your firm info. I want you on our side of the table." Mark nodded, stunned. Simone stood there, smiling like stone, refusing to look hurt, refusing to admit anything. But Mark saw it, control slipping, and her refusing to apologize even as it did. Inside the club, the energy shifted away from Simone like air leaving a balloon. Her clients got polite, not warm. The kind of polite that means distance. Mark kept his posture calm, thanked the VIP quietly, and stepped back outside. In the car later, Simone didn't ask if he was okay. She didn't say that was harsh. She said, "Why didn't you stop him?" Mark stared at the road. "Stop him from what?" Simone scoffed. "From thinking you're something. You embarrassed me." Mark's chest tightened. "I didn't say anything." Simone shrugged. "Exactly. You just sat there and let me look crazy." That night, Mark slept on the edge of the bed like a guest. Simone scrolled on her phone, texting, smiling at people who weren't him. Mark remembered their early romance like it was a movie that ended badly. He thought about the kitchen dancing, how she once whispered, "I'm yours." Now she acted like he was a tool she loaned out. Mark didn't cry loudly. He cried the way grown men cry when they're trying not to make a sound. Eyes burning, throat tight, body still. He made a decision in the dark. He would stop begging for basic respect. The next day, the VIP emailed Mark. Not hype, not excitement, just clear business. A meeting invite, a request for Mark's availability. Mark replied with his LLC info and a short portfolio, a few redacted contract samples, compliance notes, risk clauses. His hand shook, not from fear, but from how long he'd waited to be seen as himself again. Simone noticed him typing and said, "Don't get cocky." Mark didn't respond. He kept building. He kept quiet. He'd learned that Simone used his words against him. Silence became a shield. A funny thing happened that week. Mark started laughing again. Real laughter. In a grocery store in College Park, he bumped into an older couple arguing about which apples were sweet enough. Mark cracked a joke about apples having personality types. The couple laughed. Mark laughed. He realized he'd been living under a blanket of tension for so long he forgot what lightness felt like. He went home and cooked dinner. Something simple but good. Simone ate, criticized the seasoning, and complained about her clients. Mark listened with a calmness that wasn't patience anymore. It was distance. Simone's karma didn't come as a dramatic explosion. It came like a slow leak in a tire, quiet at first, then undeniable. The VIP didn't just walk away. He quietly told other decision-makers why. Not gossip, just risk assessment. And in Simone's world, reputation was currency. She started losing calls, then meetings, then accounts. People stopped responding quickly. Deadlines got revisited. Her boss started asking sharper questions. Simone came home angry, blaming everybody, coworkers, clients, jealous people, even Mark. Never herself. Never an apology. Not once. Mark kept meeting with the VIP team and a couple of other partners in Chicago. He didn't post it. He didn't brag. He flew out, did the work, flew back. Private success, quiet growth. He upgraded his laptop, hired an accountant, and started turning down low-paying clients because he could. Meanwhile, Simone's stress turned meaner. She started calling him lucky, like luck was the reason he was competent. One night she said, "Don't forget who kept the lights on." Mark looked at her and thought, "You mean who kept the respect off?" Mark's last attempt at romance happened on a rainy Friday. He brought Simone flowers and suggested they go to a jazz spot in Atlanta, somewhere intimate like when they first fell in love. Simone glanced at the flowers and said, "Are these from the grocery store?" Mark nodded. Simone laughed. "You're so basic." She didn't go. She didn't say thank you. She didn't even pretend. Mark sat alone on the couch, the flowers on the table like evidence. He finally understood. You can't romance someone into respecting you. Love doesn't grow in humiliation. Mark started planning his exit in the most Mark way possible. Organized, quiet, careful. He met with a lawyer. He gathered documents. He opened a separate account. He found a small place outside Houston where he could breathe without being watched. He did not threaten. He did not argue. Simone liked power, and arguments were a form of attention. Mark stopped feeding the machine. He kept driving her when necessary, but his spirit wasn't in it. He wasn't her driver anymore. He was simply a man finishing a chapter without begging the book to change its ending. The day Mark left, Simone didn't cry. She didn't plead. She didn't ask where he was going. She looked at the half-empty closet and said, "So you're really doing this?" Mark nodded. Simone smirked. "Good luck out there. Don't come running back." No remorse. No softness. Mark walked out with a suitcase and a box of essentials. His hands were steady. His heart wasn't. Outside, the air felt different, like his lungs finally had room. He drove himself this time. No clients. No performance. Just freedom, quiet as sunrise. Months later, Mark's life was smaller on purpose and better because of it. He worked from his Houston place, took meetings, wrote clean contracts, protected businesses from avoidable disasters. He bought a decent car because he wanted one, not because he needed to look like anything for anyone. He built routines: gym early, coffee slow, phone off after 8. Sometimes he dated. Nothing rushed. He learned what it felt like to be liked without being managed. Simone's texts came less often as her world tightened. When she did text, it wasn't "I'm sorry." It was always control in a different outfit. The last message Simone sent said, "You really think you're better than me now?" Mark stared at it for a long time. Then he deleted it and blocked her. Not out of spite, out of peace. The moral lesson hit him like something simple and solid. Love without respect is just a long, quiet injury. And no matter how loyal you are, you can't carry a relationship alone while someone uses you as a punchline. Mark's comeback wasn't public. It wasn't loud. It was private, steady, and successful. He reclaimed his name, his work, and his dignity, and he never again sat in a room where someone he loved tried to make him smaller. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.